Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be showing you a traditional Ghanaian breakfast, which also happens to be naturally vegan. This is a recipe that is very dear to my heart. It is Hausa Koko, which is a fermented millet spicy porridge. I used to have this every single day as a child growing up, and this porridge is usually paired with a deep fried black-eyed fritter, which we call Koko. If you're interested in learning how to make this delicious breakfast, please keep watching. So the night before, I'm going to be soaking my grains. Hausa Koko is usually made with pearl millet, which is a very popular millet variety we use in West Africa. I'm also going to be adding white and red sorghum. This is not traditional, but white and red sorghum are indigenous to West Africa, and they really add a nice depth of flavor. So I thought, why not include them? I really ended up liking the finished results. So the next morning, I have my grains that I have soaked. I'm going to be washing these very well because I purchased them in Ghana and they tends to be some sand and a little bit of rocks. So I will wash them very well, and then soaking just makes it easier to blend with the spices. So I'm going to be using a host of spices that we usually use in a lot of Ghanaian cooking. So we have some ginger, we have some cloves, which are incredibly pungent. I got them from Ghana. I have some grains of paradise, which are indigenous spices, grains of selim, which adds a really nice woody smell. The indigenous spices are highly recommended, but you do not have to use them. You can just up the cloves. I have some black peppercorn for extra heat, some calabash nutmeg, which is delicious, red pepper for extra heat, and that's pretty much all the spices I will be adding. So in a high-speed blender, I will be adding in my soaked grains, so the sorghum, the millets, and I will also add in my spices and then just enough water to blend everything well. I think I added about an extra 2 cups of water. The amount of water you use is not too important. Just you want to make sure that you are getting enough water to really blend everything smoothly. And we will be blending multiple times just so that you get a lot of water. But also because the spices are incredibly concentrated, you're definitely going to get a really nice flavor. So I will blend and pulse this to obliteration just to make sure that all of my grains are nice and smooth. And this is also why I prefer to use a high-speed blender, but you can use any blender that you have access to. So I'm going to do a first strain. I always have a cheesecloth on top of a fine mesh strainer. You want to strain it as well as possible. This will allow for a very silky smooth porridge. So I basically layer like 2 layers of cheesecloth on the sieve. I tried at first to try and shake it through, but it was taking forever. So I basically just hold the sides together and I squeeze out as much liquid as possible. You could technically use a nut milk bag, but I find that that is too fine of a strainer. And this, you can still get a little bit of the, the spice essence in the porridge. So I highly suggest using a cheesecloth. It does take a bit of a process, but the results are definitely worth it. So I just keep squeezing and squeezing and squeezing until I feel like I've squeezed everything out. And then this is the chaff that I have left. I'm actually going to return this back into the blender and blend it again because you want to extract as much of the flavor as possible. The pearl millet and the sorghum, they are hot commodities. So I am going to milk as much as possible from these grains and the spices just so that I make sure that I'm making a lot. So this porridge is going to definitely feed me for about 4 days. I also have a big appetite. So I just basically repeated the process over and over again, reblending it, making sure that I squeeze as much liquid as possible. Obviously, having the sieve also catches all the bigger chunks because sometimes things can spill out of the cheesecloth. So you're just going to keep squeezing and squeezing and squeezing. I keep the chaff because I feel like I can use it for something else. Sometimes I ferment it into a swallow, or I can just reuse it to make another set of porridge. So now that I've sifted everything out, I covered it and I will let it ferment overnight. So the next day I had some black-eyed peas. That night day I also soaked the black-eyed peas. So now I have my fermented porridge that's ready and my black-eyed peas that have been soaked. I will be blending it with just enough water to blend the black-eyed peas and some onions. You want to make sure that the black-eyed peas are raw. Please do not use canned black-eyed peas. Do not use cooked black-eyed peas because it will not work. It will basically just disintegrate into the oil. The hot oil is cooking the beans, so you want to keep it raw. And if you're seeing that I haven't peeled my beans, Ghanaians don't really peel beans. I think that this is very typical of Nigerian akara, which is basically the same thing. We don't peel our beans. No one has time for that. I know that it gives like a nice texture and it gives a nice color, but I kind of like that speckle that the outside and the beans give the kose. So yeah, we don't peel our beans. So now in a pot, I have some vegetable oil heating. I use a wooden spoon to check whether the oil is hot enough. And then I scoop my batter into the oil slowly. You want to make sure that everything sticks together and then it's not breaking apart so that your oil is clean after. I think I went a little bit over with the water. I would have wanted the batter to be a lot thicker, but that's what I got and everything worked out perfectly for me. So I'm just going to keep repeating, adding dollops. They are naturally turning themselves, but you also want to make sure that you are turning the kose so that all sides are browning well and that the inside cooks properly. You also want to make sure that your oil is not too hot, because if it's too hot, your outside is definitely going to get that nice golden brown, but the inside is going to be raw, and we do not want raw beans. You want the beans to be nicely cooked. I usually make a big batch of the kose and then I put it in the freezer, and then the next day I reheat it in my air fryer, because the air fryer not only reheats it, but it also gives that nice crisp again compared to just reheating it in the microwave. It's just soggy, oily mess. I just keep repeating this until all of my batter is done, and the kose is absolutely perfect. I was so proud of myself. This is the best I've actually done. I've been practicing and it's getting better and better. So I'm glad that I showed you my best batch for this video. See how golden brown it is? You're just gonna keep repeating it till everything is all fried up and you just have these delicious morsels of plant-based protein. Absolutely delicious. Usually you would eat this with like sugar bread. You'll stash them in between two slices of bread like a sandwich. That's what my dad used to do all the time as kids and it always stuck, but I didn't have any sugar bread. So now this is our fermented porridge. I think that having more water makes the fermentation process go faster and it also makes it more tangier. You only need to ferment this for 24 hours and it does the job. So usually the porridge separates. You have a water layer at the top and at the bottom you have this thick layer that is a little bit of the chaff that did not strain completely. And so I just left a little bit of the water and I'm gonna whisk it all together and you get like a thicker paste. So you can see on the sides that there's a little bit of the chaff that kind of stuck to the plastic bowl. So I mix that all very well, and when my water in the pot heats up, then I add my chaff. You know that this porridge is perfect when immediately you add your chaff and you turn the heat off, it starts to thicken immediately. I don't need to boil it. I don't need to do anything else. It just thickens and it doesn't get too thick. But if it gets too thick, you can add a little bit of hot water just to thin it down a bit to your preferred consistency. Honestly, this was the best batch of Hausa Koko I have ever made. I was super proud of myself and I was so glad that I was able to capture it for you guys to be able to see what it looks like. Super silky smooth, tangy, spicy, delicious, lots of added layer of flavors. So now I'm just gonna plate everything up. Usually in Ghana, they sell this in plastic bags, which is bad for the environment. But because I made it at home, I can enjoy it in my nice bowl. I poured out a nice, delicious serving for myself, topped it up with some roasted peanuts because that is also necessary, and obviously added in some sugar. I like mine a little bit sweet, so I definitely went a little bit over on my usual sugar amounts for the day, and it's so amazing. It's like the sourness and the sweetness. It's a perfect match made in heaven. Ghanaian food there's a lot of fermented food, so it's definitely a flavor that I love, and I like mine a little bit more tangier, but not everyone likes it that way. So I'm just gonna take a couple of the kose, the amount that I want to eat, and that's pretty much my breakfast. This is absolutely my favorite breakfast. When I was in Ghana, I had to have Hausa Koko basically every day. It is so filling, absolutely delicious, and traditionally vegan. So if you like this recipe, I have the full link in my description box below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up for more traditional vegan Ghanaian recipes, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!